All right, once again, I've got my sound notifications on. I'm trying to turn them off and it's not working. So I do apologize for the background noise that you'll be hearing throughout this presentation, but we'll do the best we can. All right, so welcome everybody. Welcome to Grant Funding for Founders and For-Profit Businesses. A little bit Romica Devi. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a sober coach, an entrepreneur, and I serve as the co-chair for StartOut's Growth Phase Virtual Board. Now today I am super excited to have founders share their knowledge and expertise on grants and how you can get access to these grants for your business. Now you may or may not be aware, but there's a lot of opportunities for you to get grant money for your business and you don't have to be a nonprofit. One of the biggest advantages of getting a grant versus a loan or through lines of credit is that you don't have to pay the money back. I'm here just quickly, I'm hearing some background noise. If somebody can mute their background just for a moment, please. Thank you. And if you're an underrepresented founder, such as an LGBTQ, a veteran, woman identified, a person of color, this can really mitigate a lot of the risk and allow you to focus on growing your business without worrying whether or not you'll have to pay the money back. And I know that this is a big relief for so many founders because often, especially in the business, you want to be able to focus your time and your energy on developing, testing, learning, and growing your business. So this is why I am so excited for this presentation because you'll discover the advantages of grants, how to secure them, and the various different types of grants that are available to you. There is also an opportunity from Founders First for you to apply for a grant this week. And we'll talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. So before I officially introduce our panelists, I just want to let the viewers know that if you have any questions, we will open up the last 10 minutes of this presentation for question and answer. So that will be your best time to ask questions. All right, so now I would like to introduce our panelists. Now, Founders First is an organization that has helped hundreds of businesses led by diverse founders to get access to capital and resources that one needs to help their business grow. And we have Shaylon Scott, who is the Executive Director for Founders First, who will be sharing her extensive knowledge and expertise with us today. We also have Daniel Hernandez from Next Level Law, who is a grant recipient and will be sharing his experience with grants from a founder's point of view. So I'll let Shaylon introduce herself. Shaylon, welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. I am excited to talk to you guys about all the work that Founders First is doing, as well as the opportunities that exist for small businesses across the country. When you often think about grants, you think of nonprofit organizations, but there are funding opportunities that are always available to help your business to grow and scale. So I want to open your eyes today to all the potential ways that you could get funding. And it's an honor to be here and share with you guys.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Shaylon. To introduce Daniel for his introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Hernandez. I'm the CEO and principal attorney at Next Level Law, where we focus on providing legal services in the area of family law, which is mostly divorce and child custody. And I'll share a little more later on how I have received a grant, but I'm super excited to be here and share my story with all of you.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel. Really excited to have you both here. So let's get started. Shaylon, can you tell us a little bit about what an organization looks for in grants? Can you tell us a little bit about that process and a little bit more about grants for profit businesses in general?
Oh, yeah. Well, each grant is a little bit different. When you're applying for certain ones, the best thing I always tell organizations, and especially those that work with us in this field, is to be ready. Take a look at everything, all the requirements before you start to apply, because you want to make sure you have a strong application. Um, as we kind of go through, we'll kind of dig into some of the grants that we have and the specific eligibility requirements, but it's also a good indicator of how to apply for other types of grant opportunities that exist, because we kind of keep the same template or model. Some things may change. So if you have a model kind of down packed on the type of information you want to share about your business, because you're the only one that knows your business the best. So if you can tell your story in a succinct way, in a clear way that sets you apart from others, and your information about your business is clear as well, whether it's your financials, whether it's a video, if all of that is clear, it makes it so much easier to not only apply for other types of grant funding, but also to tell your story for other types of potential investors or interested parties in your business. I see we're kind of going through the slide here. So you tell me wherever you want me to start, I can start there.
All right, perfect, awesome, thank you. Yeah, so can you tell us, Shaylon, a little bit about the statistics on underrepresented businesses when it comes to funding? Because I know that that's been sort of an issue for a lot of underrepresented founders to get funding for their business. And how do you think perhaps grants can play a role in that? Can you speak to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, if you move to that following slide, those next two slides give some really high level um, statistics on funding. So this one here just talks about the lack of funding. There's 77% of venture funding that goes to white business owners or white owned firms. And that's 9% that are women, 1%, and less than 1% that are LGBTQ plus owned businesses. So if you can think of the amount, the amount of capital that's out there, all the different variety of businesses that may be even of interest to venture capitals, and only this slim, small percentage is of diverse founders, you can tell that there is something that needs to change for sure. And if you go to the next slide, when you're thinking about traditional funding, that very next one, yeah, you have, out of all of the funds themselves, you have about 40% of those business owners, women owned, and 32% Black owned, and 46 that have been denied for loans. And these are traditional banks. These are the loans that you would assume that your business is growing and ready to move to the next level, and you are still getting denied. And oftentimes, when business owners are applying for loans, or they are even trying to get any type of capital, they may not get the reasons as to why their loan has been denied, or it may not be as clear to them as to what they need to do to change their application process moving forward. So one of the things, of course, we do at Founders First is to make sure that businesses are fund ready and understand what it means to be ready for funding and the type of funding that their business should be applying for. And when you're talking about grants, grants are really good, in my opinion. I will say my opinion. Grants are a good introduction to funding. It's a good way to start setting up yourself to be appealing to funders. So if you have a story that is down packed, if you have a clear idea of what your financials should look like, if you are able to quickly gather all the items that talk about where your business is registered, who the co-founders and founders are, if you can pull all of that information quickly for a grant, it will make it so much easier when you're applying for other types of funding too. Now, the requirements are going to be different, of course, but it is a great way to get started and get used to digging into the information that tells people about your business.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Shaylon. When I look at the numbers, it looks staggering. I know that this has been an issue in our community for a long time, and I've certainly met with a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community, for example, who had trouble getting funding. And over the years, over the past few years, you've seen more and more, say, venture capital firms and funding opportunities for people of color, for women, and LGBTQ plus founders. And I think that we're moving towards a positive direction. But like you say, I think grants can really be a way for people to get started. And like I said earlier, it can mitigate a lot of that risk. And I'm curious to know, Shaylon, like when it comes to applying for grants, one of the questions that, certainly came to my mind, and maybe viewers might be wondering too, is what would you say would be the most important factor in somebody actually approved for a grant? So when you look at applications, like what would you look at first and foremost, or the most important thing?
Well, as a nonprofit, we're always applying for grants as well to support our business. So whether we are applying for a large grant or a small grant, the information has to remain the same. The key things that we always look for is to make sure the grant you're applying for actually matches the need and what your business is about. If you are applying for a grant that funds restaurants and you're not a restaurant, you're not in the restaurant industry, you're just, let me try and see if I can get it, more than likely you're not going to get it. But take a look at, do you fit the parameters or the guidelines of what the grant is trying to do? For example, our Job Creators Quest grant is one that is looking for businesses that are not only looking to be educated, so they're going into an accelerator program, but we also are looking for businesses that are looking to grow, to add 1 to 2 net new employees in the next 12 months, or to grow in size. They're looking to invest in their business and to learn more about how to grow their business. So if your business is not at the phase where it needs to, has the ability or the capacity to add employees, you're currently a solopreneur, perhaps that grant is not right for you. Perhaps another grant that is more aligned with startups or someone that is looking to get started, such as our national grants. Those are 1 to 2 employees. There's not a revenue base included with it. We just really want to make sure that it's supporting the organizations and the target audiences that we're trying to support. So our Pride grant that targets LGBTQ plus communities or those that are owned by those businesses. And then we have one for mompreneurs and one for veterans. So those are really simple parameters, but again, I will emphasize to not just look at the dollars and say, I need this funding, but look to see if it actually fits your business. And I will always repeat this, don't wait until the last minute to apply. You will have hundreds of applications come through, and before you know it, that last day rolls around and the system's clogged, or you're locked out, or you don't get everything in time. So give yourself plenty of time to really think through the application and submit early, not last minute.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice. I've also heard that, to keep like a Excel sheet or some kind of a tracking where you can apply for different grants, because maybe if you don't get into one, you can always, keep applying, and all the different grants that keep popping up, you can just keep applying, and eventually, you're for one of them. Do you see that like in your case too?
Yeah, you'll see too when you start applying for grants, a lot of the same information is asked. So when you have those spreadsheets ready and available, and even what you put in one application versus the other, it makes it so much easier for you to apply for multiple opportunities, because you know that there's a pattern usually on the same things that we kind of ask. Some of the regulations or the requirements may differ, but most of the information that is asked is usually always the same.
Yeah, great. And so also, it's because I know that the grant writing process is a key piece to getting grants. And so that's something that either, say, if somebody wants to apply for a grant, they'll have to either, hire somebody to write a grant or learn how to write the grant. I'm curious, Shaylon, like, do you, is there like anything that you can share when it comes to the grant writing process in terms of like what to really focus on when it comes to writing your grant piece?
Well, I would say there is a big difference between a grant for a nonprofit and a grant for a for-profit. So all of the grants that we provide to small businesses are for-profit entities. So the requirements themselves are more an application than a grant itself. Nonprofits will have a full write-up. You may need to hire someone or have someone experienced in grant writing. But for the majority of the for-profit grant opportunities that exist, they're not necessarily looking for someone that has a grant writing background or experience. They really want someone that is telling them about their business or has a clear way for you to talk about your business. If you can't sell your business to someone, then no one else can. So you need to be able to explain it either in a video, either in a written. If you're not a good writer, find someone who can kind of put together a nice little summary of what your business is and the needs that it has. But often those grant opportunities for for-profit businesses are not as in-depth as they are for nonprofits, which is great because you have plenty of time to, if you haven't already started doing so, is practicing your pitching or practicing if someone walked up to you on the street and wanted to know what does your business do or what are some of the needs that your business had. You should quickly be able to come up with those things. So it's a good way to have that kind of ready as well. So I wouldn't say go out and get a grant writer. I would say really know your business and what your business needs.
Yeah, I think that's a really key piece of information to really know because one thing, it sounds very similar to me from, I see a lot of parallels between applying for a grant and also like say applying for traditional funding or going through like a venture capital form in terms of like having a business plan, a pitch deck, and like you said, knowing how to sell your business. Do you see any like is there any like major difference, like say somebody here that's watching and they've done the traditional funding, applying for like say seed funding from a venture capital firm, like is there anything that's major like that would be a key difference between say applying for a grant and applying for traditional funding in that sense?
Yeah. I will say that oftentimes when grants are available to for-profit businesses, it's for a specific cause. So whether it's to support women-owned businesses, whether it's to support moms or LGBTQ plus, so they often don't just want the numbers. They don't just want to know the business plan. They want to know the story behind the business owner. They want to know what inspired you to start the business. What are your plans to support the community? They really want to see a not just the business to thrive and survive, but they want to see how your business plans to grow or what do you plan to do with the fund. So when you're thinking of traditional funding, often it may be what's your business plan, its model, what do you plan to do with the funding moving forward? And there's not a back and forth between the two, but sometimes for the grants, there's a follow-up. It could be an education piece, it could be coaching, it could be ongoing workshops that go along with the grant opportunity. So not just knowing the numbers and the data behind your business, but the why and all of the colorful story surrounding why you started the business and why it's so important, why you love it, and why you're passionate about it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that's really important for people, the audience, to know too, because the numbers seem to be very important in the traditional in funding as versus grants, where your story, your passion, and all those important elements come into play. So that's an important part of it. I'd like to move on to the different grant programs. I know that Founders First grant program, various different grants, and I have created a resource file for the audience watching that has all of Founders First grants as well as some additional grants that you can actually start applying for today. So Shaylon, can you share with us a little bit about the different types of grants that Founders First offers?
Yeah. Well, we offer 8 different grants. And before I kind of even go into all of those, I do suggest if you have an organization like ours that does grants on a periodic basis, sign up for their newsletters so you get notified as soon as things open up. So we're foundersfirstcdc.org. You can sign up right there. But we have regional grants for each region that we serve, as well as we have national grants, which are available for anyone across the country to participate in. So our three national grants we have, one is our Kitty Fund grant, and that one is for mompreneurs or mother-owned businesses. That's usually held around Mother's Day, and we ask moms all sorts of questions about their experience as a mother and uh, their first experience in Mother's Day. So it's a really fun one that we like to see. And that one is $25,000 for 25 businesses. And then we have our Stephen L. Tadlock. That one is in around Veterans Day, and that's for our veteran-owned businesses. And that one as well. They're all our national ones are pretty similar in the types of information we ask for the grant recipient to respond to. The only difference is the target that we're trying to reach. And then our Pride grant, that's our newest one, and that one is open right now for Pride Month, and that one is for businesses owned and operated by those in the LGBTQ plus community. And if you identify with either of those, whether you're a mompreneur, a veteran-owned business, or you're a part of the LGBTQ plus community, you could apply for those grants. And that's $1,000 that you can use to support your business for whether it's marketing, whether it's a tool that you need to purchase for your business, whether it's putting more information in reserve, more dollars in your reserve, whatever the case may be, you can use that. And then we have our regional grants, and those are in the states that we serve. So Founders First, we are a national nonprofit, but we specifically serve certain states right now, especially for our grants. And that's Texas, California, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Minnesota. So we have our Job Creators Quest grants, which are designed to support businesses looking to grow. So at minimum, they have $100,000 in revenue starting, and they are looking to add employees in the next 12 months or so, 1 to 2 net new employees. And so we have it in the Southern California region, in the Chicagoland area, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Texas, and just recently this year in the Twin Cities region. And that one is the $100,000 for 25 businesses, and that's spread across the 25 businesses, but it also includes a seat in one of our accelerator programs. So what we found, especially at Founders First, is it doesn't do a lot of businesses any good to simply receive money if they are not provided with additional education on how they can best use the money to the best of their ability. So going through the accelerator programs really help with all of that.
Fantastic. So that's quite a few different grants that to apply for. I think that's great. And I have included all the grants from Founders First in the resource file that I'll be sharing shortly, so you can have access to the links to apply for these grants, including the Pride Fund. So there's, like I said, there's a ton of opportunities right now, and from Founders First, you've got all these different grants to apply for. So that's amazing. So now I would like to kind of move on from talk a little bit from a business, a founder's point of view. I really thought it would be important to bring on somebody from that's actually received a grant and what it was like, the process for them. I think it will be really helpful for people watching. And so I know that you have a couple of stories that you would like to share, I believe, Shaylon, and then we can have Daniel come on and his insights.
Yeah, if you can go to one of the slides here, we have Quentin McNair. He's one of the recipients of our Stephen L. Tadlock grant, and that's for our veteran-owned businesses. It's really great when we see all these businesses that are applying, especially across the country. They have such awesome stories about what they plan to do with the funds, how their business got started. He is one, for example, his Struggle Beer Bakery. He was awarded and he was able to purchase commercial mixers for his baking company to help him continue to grow. And so using those funds can be something small, but that $1,000 can go a long way to a business owner. So even though one of the things I like about our national grants is you can apply for the national one, and if you're in the same region as our job creators, you can apply for that as well too. There's no disconnect between the two. You can apply for both if you need to. So Quentin's a great example of someone that used the funds to add to their business, and he's still doing really well, doing great.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we also have Daniel, who's here. Daniel, can you would you like to? I think you're on the screen. There you go. So just would like to have Daniel share a little bit about his experiences with receiving a grant. So Daniel, welcome. Can you share with us a little bit about the benefits that you've received from receiving a grant for your business?
Yeah, so I received one of the regional grants, which came with the Accelerator Bootcamp. And I would say that was probably one of the most impactful things that I did. You know, in law school, they teach us how to lawyer, is what I like to tell people. They teach us how to advocate, but they don't teach us how to run businesses. And certainly I had a healthcare business background from undergrad, but that just wasn't enough to help me run a law firm. And it was just so impactful to be in the program, in addition to receiving funds in the grant, and just learning so much about how to grow a business, and specifically about the numbers that go behind the business, right? I think a lot of us are like, okay, profit and loss, I understand that statement. That one's easy. Cash flow, kind of, sort of, right? But like, what is meaningful about these financial reports, and what do they tell you, right? And learning all of that, I think, was extremely impactful for me as a CEO, right? Extremely impactful for me in making decisions on how to grow my business, right? And I have added new employees to the business, and the business has had its shocks, right? You know, I think businesses ebb and flow, but it's certainly, the grant and the course along with the grant has really put me in a new position, has changed my mindset from just owning a business to wanting to be the chief executive and truly growing it so that the mission behind the business is super impactful. You know, I wanted to share about the application process, if it's okay.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah, you know, I am a skeptic when it comes to applying for stuff, right? And I was like, I saw this ad that came through from the Chicago Latino Network that said, like, Founders First is giving out $100,000. And I was like, oh, I could use some money, right? Like, I mean, who couldn't use some money, right? And I started the application, and it was so interesting to me because I just thought it was much more simple than I thought it was going to be. And I say that because, like, the Founders First application in particular, right? Certainly you all asked for, you know, my organizational chart and a profit and loss statement, and those things that, if you're running your business pretty consistently, right, I think you're going to have those items kind of readily available, right? I didn't have a perfect organizational chart, but I whipped one up pretty quickly. I knew my organizational chart in my mind, right? And so it was just putting it on paper, applying. And then what was so beautiful about it was just a 2-minute video. And I remember someone from Founders First giving me a call and just telling me, like, hey, this is all we want to see in the video, is like these 4 questions. And you know, I was kind of skeptical too, like, okay, are you sure just those 4 questions? Because I'll talk about whatever you want me to talk about in those 2 minutes that you're giving me, right? And I just followed directions. I spoke for 2 minutes from the heart, and tried to make the best quality video that I could using my iPhone and my AirPods, right? And that's what I did. And I guess what I want to share with everyone is, like, it doesn't have to be 110% of perfection, right? Just give it your best and apply, right? Because I think sometimes people don't apply to a lot of things. And then the winners are selected just based off who applied sometimes, right? Not even, sometimes there's not a selection process. Not saying that's not what happened here, right? But I have been in different organizations where we're giving away scholarships or, you know, different awards, and sometimes it's the applicant that applied that got it, right? And so I'd say once you have everything in order for one grant, it's easy to apply for another grant. And I'll even share with the group that I recently applied for the Pride grant. And given that I had already done an application last year, I had all of the information readily available. And this application process probably took me 30 minutes to put together the entire application versus I think maybe the first time I took something more like 3 hours because I do want to be perfect. And my video took me 2-minute video took me probably 48 minutes to record, right? With all the different takes that I did. So,
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Can I just add one thing? I love that you mentioned that for sure. We need to be perfect. It doesn't, and we try our best. Now, we're not perfect. We try to make sure that the applications are not too intense. We're not asking everything under the sun because we understand you are busy business owners. We expect you to be busy and working for sure. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you to get capital to support your business so you can move to the next level. So, but we do accept feedback. So if there are ways we can improve and get better each year, we welcome all of that.
That's great. I love that. And Daniel, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And I agree with you. I think it's like anytime you embark on a journey, especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's like that initial fear, right? Like that you have that initial fear and then you go and do it and then it's out of the way and you just get better and better over time with practice. So it seems like with the grant process, it's gonna initially might be a little bit of investment of your time and energy, but the more you do it, the better it gets and the easier the process gets. And it seems like there's so many grants for opportunities that keep coming up for you to keep applying for. And the key is to get it down, get the information, prepare everything, and then just keep submitting your application. So I appreciate your feedback and your experience, Daniel. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. So I would like to open up the space for questions, for any questions from the audience. It's a little over 10 minutes left, so we'd welcome your questions if you have any questions for us.
I know for sure I was answering in the chat at the same time. So
Yeah.
if you see some questions coming through that I didn't answer, please feel free to put them in there. Oh, when's the next round of national grants coming up? We have what's coming up? Kitty Fund is next. No, I'm saying that incorrect. It's the Tadlock Fund that's coming up next in November. So that one opens up. But our regional one we have open that'll be coming up next is the Pennsylvania, New Jersey region, the Job Creators Quest grant. That's the next one that's open. And let me get the dates for you here. Yes, our Tadlock grant opens in September. And our Pennsylvania, New Jersey grant, that one is open now and it goes until the 26th. And then we have our SoCal Job Creators Quest grant that'll open in October. So I definitely advise you, if you have not already, to sign up to the newsletter so you get notified right away when the grant opportunities open. And for some of the grants, let's say you've missed it, let's say the Pride grant or some others, you missed the time frame, sign up to pre-register for the next year so you get notified as soon as the application is open and available, so you don't have to remember when to reapply. We're going to notify you anyway. See a question. Opinion on companies like Grantify. Oh, I don't have an opinion. However, I will say there are a lot of options that exist. If you're looking for grants at, let's say, even in your region, talking to your local economic development council is a great start. Sometimes they have grants that are provided through their state or local entities. And the local colleges sometimes will source grants from across the country. There are a lot of organizations that'll send out a full list of grant opportunities that are open for your state, especially entrepreneurial centers. If you're not already connected with an entrepreneurial center or a co-working space that supports entrepreneurs, or even CDFIs, community development financial institutions, a lot of those will try and provide updates, their newsletters on when grants are open too, because it takes more than just one organization to support all the small businesses that exist. We have to work together to make sure it's out there. When does the Pride Grant open up again? It will open back up in May of next year. So put it on your calendar now. We'll try and get it going then. Any other questions?
Questions?
Well, if there's not another question, I would like to just tell you a little bit more too about Founders First. If you're not familiar with us, I definitely advise that you follow us on social media, especially so you can learn not only about us as the organization, but the businesses that have gone through the cohorts and that have received our services. We try our best not just to talk about what we do, but we like to highlight and amplify the businesses and how they're growing. We've had this past year 7 businesses who've gone through our programs make the Inc. 5000 list. So when all of these businesses are doing great, we want to hear your successes. We want to see you grow. That's a testament to the work that we're trying to do, is the more successful you are. So I definitely advise, if you have not already connected with the business service organization in your region or your area, to definitely do so. And feel free to follow us. You can contact me anytime or follow us at foundersfirstcdc.org and learn about our grants, all of our programs, and everything else that we do across the country.
Great, thank you. And I think we have a question from a viewer that's asking, when is a national grant open up?
The next Pride one opens up in May of next year. The next Stephen L. Tadlock one opens up in September. So if you, like I mentioned, definitely stay in contact with us so you can get notified as soon as it opens. So those 3 national ones are the Stephen L. Tadlock Fund, the Kitty Fund, and our Pride Grant. Those are ones that are open to anyone across the country. Doesn't matter if you're in one of the states that we serve or not.
Great. And also, is the Pride grant open till the end of this month, or is it a specific date?
It has just closed.
Oh, it just closed.
Yes, it just closed. I know the timing was just a little off. It just closed last week. So that's okay. You can pre-register for next year so you're notified, and definitely sign up. But we had a lot of interest and a lot of businesses to apply. So you'll get to see some exciting businesses come through who will get those funds.
Great. And, Founders First does have a lot of different grant opportunities. So just keep looking and staying in touch with Founders First so you can be notified of those opportunities. So any last minute questions before we close?
I wanted to share before we left, just following up on what Shaylon just mentioned about the centers for entrepreneurship and the offices that our local and state governments have. I'm on a couple of listservs, one from the Office of Minority Economic Empowerment in the state of Illinois, and I'm also on another list for minority business owners in Cook County specifically. And there are so many grants that are posted in both of those newsletters every single month. And, to Shaylon's point, I don't apply for all of them, but the ones that I do qualify for, I have applied for, right? And it's just an easy way to know when the grant is coming. And, sometimes I just set a reminder on an email like, oh, that grant looks interesting. Let me look into it closer to the deadline of the application, right? Because I'm maybe too busy today when I get it, right? So I just wanted to share that just so everyone kind of knows, like, the grants are out there, and it's not so much like we have to go on such deep dives into Google. Sometimes you could just wait for it to come into your inbox just by signing up to a listserv from your local Office of Economic Empowerment. So
absolutely. And these are grants that you're not paying the money back. So this is not a loan. This is not, uh, some of the grants do have stipulations like ours. You receive funding with a seat in the accelerator. Some have that component where you meet some requirements. You may go to a workshop or something like that to receive the funds. But this is still not money that you are paying back. So you can use this for your business for sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We're going to close the presentation here. And I just want to say a big thank you to Founders First for coming on. And thank you so much, Shaylon. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing your experiences and expertise. I want to thank StartOut and its sponsors for hosting this presentation. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Founders First. The contact information is up here. It's also in the resource file that I sent you. And we will close the presentation now. And thank you once again, everybody, for attending.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.